Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be taking a look at AI code generation,
Oh, very cool.
specifically a new system
Okay.
called PyCapsule.
PyCapsule.
And
All right.
the idea here is,
Yeah.
imagine if you had AI that could write your code for you and debug it.
Wow.
That's kind of what
That would be incredible.
we're going to be looking at today, and we're going to be doing that with the help of this research paper on PyCapsule.
Yeah, it's really amazing how this field has just kind of like exploded recently.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah, we're going from, AI barely being able to like write basic scripts to now, systems that are aiming for fully functional debugged code.
Yeah,
It's really exciting.
PyCapsule, this is what we're going to be diving deep into today.
Right.
This is designed to make this whole process more efficient.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin with something this complex?
Well, I think every good solution starts by, tackling a problem first.
Sure.
And for programmers, I think one of the biggest problems that we face is just the time sink of debugging.
Oh, yeah.
You write what you think is perfect code,
Right.
only to find out it's riddled with errors.
Ugh.
And then comes the hunt for those bugs, which eats up even more time.
Yeah, every programmer's worst nightmare.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I bet this inefficiency is just amplified when you're talking about, teams of developers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It can derail project timelines,
Right.
blow budgets, and a lot of the existing solutions that we have, things like multi-agent frameworks, they try to, throw multiple AI agents at the problem, but they often require a ton of computing power, so they're very resource intensive.
So not exactly practical for everyday use,
Right.
which is where PyCapsule comes in.
Exactly. PyCapsule uses a two-agent system, so it's a little bit simpler.
Okay.
You have the programmer agent, which writes the code and even debugs it.
Okay.
And then you have the executor agent, which tests the code and reports back.
So it's like having a super-powered pair programming partner that never gets tired.
That's a great way to put it.
But I'm guessing it's a little more complicated than just two agents chatting back and forth.
You're right. There are three specialized modules that really make this whole system tick.
Okay.
The first one is a signature converter.
All right.
So inconsistent function signatures can cause a lot of problems, and this module helps to standardize them for more stable code generation.
So it's like laying down the ground rules for the code right from the start.
Exactly.
Make sure everyone's speaking the same language.
Yeah.
Very clever.
Yep.
What about the other modules?
The next one is the example call detector, and this one's all about safety.
Okay.
It prevents the AI from accidentally creating code that could get stuck in an infinite loop.
Right.
Imagine if your AI just went rogue and crashed your system.
I see the need for that for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Last but not least, what's the third module?
This is the error handler, and this is where I think things get really interesting.
Okay.
This module acts as a translator, taking those often very cryptic error messages from the executor agent and turning them into clear feedback for the programmer agent.
So it's like a built-in interpreter for the AI, making sure it understands, what went wrong and how to fix it.
Exactly.
Okay, this is starting to sound like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
But how does PyCapsule actually do all of this? Walk us through the workflow.
Sure, now that we understand the different components,
Right.
let's see how they all come together in PyCapsule's workflow.
Right.
The whole process is broken down into three key phases.
Okay.
The first one is code generation,
All right.
and it starts with a prompt.
Okay.
Basically, instructions given to the programmer agent, something like, write a function that calculates the factorial of a number.
So it's taking a human-readable task and turning it into code.
Exactly.
That's pretty impressive. What happens next?
Well, this is where caught reasoning comes in.
Caught reasoning.
Yeah, COT stands for chain of thought,
Okay.
and it basically helps the AI think through the problem logically.
Right.
Imagine it's like writing pseudocode before the actual code.
Okay.
So breaking the task down into clear steps.
Sure.
And this not only leads to better code structure, but it also helps with debugging later on.
Because the AI has a roadmap of its own thinking.
Exactly.
So it can go back and retrace its steps
Right.
if something goes wrong.
Exactly.
Makes sense. So after the AI has its plan, what's next?
Next is environment setup.
Okay.
So the AI figures out which libraries or tools it needs to accomplish the task.
Okay.
Think of it like gathering all the ingredients before you start cooking.
Right.
And then finally we have code synthesis, where the programmer agent actually writes the code.
Okay, so the code is written. What happens next? How does PyCapsule actually put the code to the test?
Well, that's where the execution phase comes in.
Right.
The executive agent takes that generated code and runs it in a safe, isolated environment,
Okay.
usually a Docker container.
Okay.
And the code is put through a series of tests to see if it behaves as expected.
Right.
If it passes, great.
Right.
We have working code.
But I'm guessing it doesn't always go quite that smoothly.
Right.
What happens when bugs creep in?
That's when the self-debugging magic happens. If the
Oh,
executor agent encounters any errors during the testing,
right.
it sends detailed diagnostic reports back to the programmer agent.
Oh, okay.
And remember that error handler module we talked about?
Yeah,
That steps in to translate those often very cryptic error messages
right.
into something that the programmer agent can understand.
So it's like a feedback loop. The AI is learning from its mistakes and refining the code.
Exactly.
This whole process sounds incredibly efficient, but is it always effective?
That's a great question. And actually, one of the most interesting findings in the research paper was
Okay.
what they called the debugging dilemma.
The debugging dilemma.
Yeah, they found that the AI's success rate in fixing bugs actually decreased with more debugging attempts.
Wait, really? More attempts don't lead to better results. That's kind of counterintuitive.
It is.
Hmm.
What they found was that those first few debugging attempts
Right.
were usually very effective.
Okay.
The AI very quickly identifies and fixes the most obvious errors.
Right.
But as that process continues, it starts grappling with subtler, harder to detect issues.
Yeah, makes sense. It's like the low-hanging fruit is easy to pick, but the higher you go, the more challenging it becomes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can relate to that from my own coding experiences.
Yeah, and to be clear, when we talk about this decreasing success rate,
Yeah.
we're talking about the normalized success rate,
Okay.
which takes into account the complexity of the error.
Okay.
So even though the AI might be struggling with those tougher bugs,
Right.
its overall performance is still quite impressive.
So PyCapsule is encountering some of the same challenges that human programmers face.
Yeah,
Debugging is just a complex process, whether you're an AI or a human.
right.
But how does PyCapsule actually perform compared to other code generation systems?
Well, you have to remember one of the main goals with PyCapsule was efficiency. It's designed to use fewer resources,
Right.
be faster than those bulky multi-agent frameworks.
Yeah.
But what's really amazing is that it can still outperform some of those larger, more resource-intensive systems.
So it's like David taking on Goliath in the world of AI code generation.
That's a good way to put it.
Are there any specific examples of how it performed?
Absolutely. So on the Big Code Bench dataset,
Okay.
PyCapsule, using the Qwen 7b model, actually outperformed its 32B variant by a whopping 24.4%.
Wow, that's a much bigger difference than I expected.
Yeah.
What factors might explain that kind of performance gap?
Well, it really highlights the fact that bigger isn't always better.
Right.
Sometimes a cleverly designed system and efficient use of resources
Right.
can be just as effective, if not more so.
So it's really challenging that bigger is better mentality that often dominates the AI world.
Right.
It's not always about brute force.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about elegance and efficiency.
Exactly. And, even with this debugging challenge that we talked about,
Right.
PyCapsule has some major advantages.
Okay.
One of the key things that stood out to me in the paper was just how efficient it is.
Right.
And a lot of that stems from a reduced computational overhead compared to some other methods.
Can you elaborate on that a bit? What exactly makes PyCapsule so efficient?
Sure. So one of the key contributors is the reduced number of API calls that it makes to large language models, LLMs.
Okay.
These calls are computationally expensive, and by minimizing them,
Right.
PyCapsule manages to significantly reduce its overall resource consumption.
So it's about making smarter use of the available resources rather than just throwing more computing power at the problem.
Exactly.
I'm starting to see a theme here.
Right, and this efficiency has some really exciting implications.
Like what?
Well, not only does it make PyCapsule potentially cheaper to use,
Right.
but it also opens up possibilities for running it on less powerful hardware.
Okay.
This could make AI-powered code generation more accessible to a wider range of developers and researchers.
That's a fantastic point. It could really democratize access to this technology
Yeah,
and accelerate innovation in the field.
absolutely.
But I have to ask the question that's probably on everyone's mind.
Right.
If AI can generate and debug code this effectively,
Yeah.
are human programmers going to be out of a job?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Something that people are understandably concerned about.
Right.
But I believe that tools like PyCapsule are more likely to augment human programmers, not replace them.
Okay.
Think of it as a powerful assistant that can handle those repetitive, time-consuming tasks,
Right.
freeing up programmers to focus on more creative and complex challenges.
So it's more like having an AI partner
Yeah,
that takes care of the grunt work,
exactly.
allowing human programmers to focus on the bigger picture,
Right.
the more strategic aspects of software development.
It's about collaboration and synergy, humans and AI working together to create better software.
Okay, so it's not about being replaced by AI, it's about learning to work with AI.
Exactly.
It's a whole new paradigm for software development.
It is, and it brings us to the really exciting possibilities that PyCapsule opens up for the future of software development.
Okay, so what kind of future are we looking at here? What could this mean for programmers and the software they create?
Well, I think it could lead to a world where software development is just so much faster and more efficient, more
Right,
creative, you know?
right.
Imagine programmers being able to just focus on, that higher level design and problem solving,
Yeah,
leaving the nitty-gritty of code implementation and bug fixing to their AI assistants.
that would free up so much mental bandwidth.
Right.
It's like having a superpowered spell checker for code constantly catching errors and suggesting fixes.
Exactly.
But wouldn't this shift require programmers to adapt their skill sets?
Absolutely. As AI takes on more of those traditional coding tasks,
Yeah,
programmers will need to become more skilled in areas like AI system design,
right.
data analysis,
Okay.
and understanding how to effectively collaborate with AI tools.
So it's not about being replaced by AI.
Right.
It's about learning to work with AI. A
Exactly.
whole new paradigm for software development.
Yeah, and one of the things that struck me as we were talking about PyCapsule's debugging capabilities
Right.
is how much we take the human element of debugging for granted.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Like, we assume that a programmer can just look at an error message,
Right.
understand what went wrong,
Sure.
the context of the error,
Yeah.
how it fits into the bigger picture of the code.
Right.
But for an AI,
Right.
it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
It has to learn to interpret those often very cryptic error messages,
Right.
understand the nuances of the programming language,
Right.
figure out how its code impacts the overall system.
Right.
It's almost like teaching a machine to think like a human programmer.
Which is no easy feat. It
Yeah.
really highlights just the complexity of human cognition
Yeah.
and the challenges of replicating that in a machine.
Absolutely. And it also underscores the importance of not underestimating the skills and expertise of human programmers.
Yeah.
Even with all these advancements in AI,
Right.
human ingenuity,
Okay.
intuition, problem-solving abilities,
Yeah.
those are going to remain essential in software development.
But it's not AI versus humans.
Right.
It's AI and humans.
Exactly.
Each brings their unique strengths to the table.
Yeah,
And it's through this collaboration that we can really unlock the potential of AI
absolutely.
in software development.
Now let's come back to that thought-provoking question we posed earlier.
Right.
If AI can debug its own code, what does that mean for the future of software development? Could this fundamentally change how programmers work?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, what kind of future do you see unfolding as AI takes on more of these debugging responsibilities?
Well, I believe it could lead to a world where software development is significantly faster,
No way.
more efficient.
Right.
Imagine AI systems not only generating code,
But also constantly scanning code bases for bugs, identifying potential issues before they even become problems.
it's like having an AI watchdog,
Yeah,
constantly monitoring the health of your code,
right.
alerting you to any potential risks.
Exactly.
That would be a game changer for software reliability and security.
Absolutely. And this increased efficiency could free up human programmers to focus on more strategic tasks.
Yeah.
Like innovation, design thinking,
Sure.
solving complex problems that require human creativity and intuition.
So it's really exciting to imagine a future where AI handles those tedious and time-consuming tasks,
Right.
allowing programmers to focus on those more fulfilling and impactful aspects of software development.
Exactly.
But with any new technology, there are also potential challenges and concerns.
Of course, one concern is the potential for over-reliance on AI.
Yeah,
If we become too dependent on AI to find and fix all our bugs,
right.
what happens to the debugging skills of human programmers? Right? Will we lose that critical thinking ability and intuition that's so essential in software development?
Yeah, that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
It highlights the importance of striking that balance,
Right.
between leveraging AI's capabilities
Yeah.
and ensuring that human programmers maintain their core skills and expertise.
I think that's key.
It's also crucial to make sure that AI debugging systems are developed responsibly and ethically.
Right.
We need to be mindful of potential biases in the data used to train these systems,
Of course.
as these biases could be reflected in the code that they produce.
So transparency and accountability are paramount.
Absolutely.
We need to be able to understand how these AI systems make decisions.
Right.
Ensure that they are aligned with, our ethical principles.
Exactly. And I think this deep dive has highlighted that AI is a powerful tool
Yeah.
with the potential to revolutionize software development.
Right.
But it's just that it's a tool.
Right.
The future of software development is ultimately in our hands.
Yeah.
It's up to us to guide the development and use of AI in a way that benefits both programmers and society as a whole.
That's a great point to end on. AI is not here to replace us, but to empower us.
Yeah.
It's a tool that, when used responsibly and ethically, can help us build a better future.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for taking us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of PyCapsule and AI-powered code generation.
It's been a pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, we encourage you to continue exploring, questioning, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the world of AI and software development. Until next time, happy coding.